Hello, I'm Trevor Lewis, and this is another video from the Voyager Middle School STEAM Lab. Today we're going to be using xDesign to create a 3D printed vase by lofting. Our vases could look something like this, where we have shapes that we're connecting, and we're going to use the new xDesign platform for this instead of SolidWorks. So the way we're going to do it is we have a plan. We're going to make planes first so that we can have several different levels to draw our sketches on. And then we're going to sketch cross sections on each of those planes, loft them together, and then we're going to shell. I also have videos that show you how to do the individual things listed here as well. So we're going to start with making planes. So to start off with, we have the XY plane, the YZ plane, and the ZX plane. And we have those flat planes, but if we were going to want a loft, we were going to want planes that are parallel. With a 3D printer, the XY plane, we consider that the build plate. That's the bottom layer. So we're going to go parallel to that plane. You could even turn off the other plane's visibility by clicking them and clicking the eyeball, because we're really going to just focus on this plane and creating planes above it. We're using millimeters because our 3D printer speaks millimeters. To get into the planes, we're going to go to the features menu. We're going to switch back and forth between sketch and features. So this is the plane tool. When you click on it, it wants to know a reference. I'm going to choose the XY plane as a reference, and by default it's only 10 millimeters up. I want it to be a little taller than that because 10 millimeters is only a centimeter. It's not very tall. So if I want my vase to be tall-ish and I want 2 or 3 or 4 maybe or 5 max, you could have more than that, but the more constraints you put on it, the more likely you are to have issues. We can only, right now in xDesign, make reference planes from the built-in planes, so you cannot make reference planes from your other reference planes. So if I start with one that's at 30 millimeters and I want an equally spaced one at 60 millimeters, so now they're 30 apart, I can make another plane, and they don't have to be equally spaced. You can see I'm also not going straight to this plane menu. I'm just using it as a context menu. When I click on the reference plane, I can create one from the context menu. I'm going to go 100 this time, and let's do one more. Let's do, oh, maybe I didn't make that last one. I think I forgot to click the, I always forget to click the green check mark. That's important. And then let's make one at 150. $150 millimeters is about 6 inches tall. Okay, so now I've got my planes. So if I go back to my plan, I've made my planes. Now I need to sketch cross sections on each plane. So in my previous videos for SolidWorks, I've used all sorts of different shapes. The trick in xDesign is they need to have the same number of segments. So it means you have to break them into segments by using, let me move my picture real quick, this split sketch tool right here. But I have noticed a flaw in this version, and maybe it'll be fixed in a future version, but the ellipse tool, when you split it, it makes it so the ellipse is no longer a closed shape, and you can't use it for a loft. So I might just stay away from the ellipse tool. The easiest way is to use the same number of sides in each shape on each layer. So if I start with like a circle, for example, I can make a pretty interesting shape by just drawing a circle as my base. Click the green check mark to close the sketch, and then let's do another circle, but we're going to do it on the next plane up. And I can always, if I always keep it centered at the center of my axes, then I can make sure that I'm lining up. I can also do that by clicking on top here to see them like this. So if you're keeping track, I've done the XY plane and plane 1. So now I want to do plane 2. So when I start my circle and it says which plane do you want, I can choose plane 2 here. I can draw it right on top. So by changing the diameter, I'm going to make my vase go in and out. Okay. I can also make it go off to the side. It's helpful to be right-clicking or middle-clicking and orbiting like this, so you can make sure that you're drawing in separate planes. You're not accidentally drawing in different planes than you intend to. So now I can draw a circle, but this time I'm going to have it go off to the side here. And then my last one, maybe I'll have it come back. And I'm clicking to start and clicking to finish always so that I can control it. Those grids that show up when you start a sketch, they can also help me with size. One of these grids is 100 millimeters square, so that can give you an idea of how big things are. So now I've got these sketches here, and so now I'm ready for my next phase, which is Loft. So that's in the features menu because it's a 3D shape. Loft will connect these up. It'll just create a skin around them. I'm going to select each one, and it'll show me a preview as I'm lofting. And occasionally my loft will fail because I have one of these backwards like this. So you see the orange arrows all have to point the same direction on the surface, otherwise the loft gets confused. So you can just click the arrows to swap them. You can also twist in between by moving this point to a different point along the outside if you have other points set up. I don't have other points set up because these are circles, so I only have one point. So there is my loft. It's all previewed out. I'm going to hit the check mark to keep it, and I'll have my generated loft. I could hide my planes if I wanted a better look at it by clicking these eyeballs on the planes. So that would be a 3D printable shape, but it's solid. So to make it a container that can hold something, I'm going to use this tool right here, which is the shell tool. When you choose shell, you can have a few different options, but I'm going to choose a shell, and it says faces to remove here, and I'm just going to click on the top face, and I'm going to have it set to 1 millimeter. Now 1 millimeter is about as thin as we can go on our 3D printer without little holes showing through the sides of the walls. So let me show you what that looks like when I choose 1 millimeter here. That is about right. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to how big your object is and your walls look thinner than this, even though you have them set to 1 millimeter, it might be because your vase is so big it won't fit inside my 3D printer. So when I shrink it down, the walls will shrink too, and then they'll be thinner than 1 millimeter, which is no good. So if you want to change how thick the walls are, you can always edit the feature, and you can change the number of millimeters that this is. So I'm going to go up to 3 millimeters there. Okay, so then I'll hit the check mark, and I have a finished vase that can be 3D printed.